On 7 April 1945 in the East China Sea, north of Okinawa, the Japanese battleship Yamato led a desperate formation, accompanied by the light cruiser Yahagi and 8 destroyers, Isokaze, Hamakaze, Yukikaze, Asashimo Kasumi, Hatsushimo, Fuyutsuki, and Suzutsuki. The force sailed southward under clear daylight. Vice Admiral Seiichi Ito commanded the Surface Special Attack Unit with Captain Kosaku Aruga directing Yamato's operations. Yamato, the largest battleship ever constructed, displaced 65,000 tons at full load and mounted 9 18-inch guns, capable of firing shells 25 miles. Operation Tengo tasked this flotilla with a one-way mission to penetrate the Allied transport area off Okinawa attack shipping, then beach Yamato, to serve as a fixed artillery battery. The United States 10th Army had landed on Okinawa 6 days prior, on 1 April 1945, securing a foothold that threatened Japan's inner defenses. The Imperial Japanese Navy, its resources dwindling, launched this final major surface operation to disrupt the invasion, coordinating with large-scale kamikaze air attacks. Fuel constraints limited Yamato to a single outbound journey with no provisions for return. Each ship carried only enough oil for a one-way run, averaging 22 knots across open water. The number that matters is 65,000 tons. Yamato's displacement, a symbol of unmatched power, yet tethered by fuel scarcity and tactical exposure. The United States Fifth Fleet under Admiral Raymond Spruance held overwhelming superiority in the Pacific. Fast Carrier Task Force 58, commanded by Vice Admiral Marc Mitscher, stood ready with multiple carrier groups positioned 300 miles from the Japanese force. These carriers, including fleet and light units, operated aircraft capable of striking at ranges exceeding 300 miles, equipped with fighters, dive bombers, and torpedo planes. Yamato's anti-aircraft defenses, comprising 150 25mm guns and 12 5-inch guns, prepared for the inevitable aerial assault. Japanese commanders understood the risks of daylight operations, but accepted them as strategic necessity. The formation's course, hugging Kyushu's coast before turning south, offered little cover against United States reconnaissance. Submarines and patrol aircraft operating at altitudes up to 20,000 feet were already tracking the flotilla as it exited Bungo Strait on 6 April. The constraint was time every hour in open water increased detection risk. Yamato's massive silhouette, visible from miles away, betrayed her position to patrolling aircraft. Japanese lookouts scanned the horizon, their binoculars catching glints of distant scout planes. The mission's audacity stemmed from Japan's deteriorating position. By 1945, the Imperial Navy had lost most of its carriers and trained air crews, leaving surface ships like Yamato as the last symbols of resistance. Operation Tengo reflected a shift to sacrificial tactics, mirroring the kamikaze ethos dominating Japan's air strategy. Ito and Aruga, seasoned officers, executed orders with precision, though the flotilla's fuel-limited range curtailed tactical flexibility. The destroyers, each displacing 2,000 to 3,000 tons, provided screening and anti-submarine protection, but were vulnerable to air attack. Yahagi, with her 6-inch guns, offered limited anti-aircraft support. United States intelligence, fed by code-breaking and reconnaissance, anticipated the sortie. Mitscher's carriers, including Hornet, Bennington, and Belleau Wood, prepared to launch massed strikes with aircraft capable of delivering 500-pound bombs and Mark 13 torpedoes. The number that matters is 300 miles, the carrier's striking range, enabling attacks without surface engagement. Japanese radio silence aimed to preserve stealth, but the flotilla's size and course rendered concealment futile. As Yamato steamed at 22 knots, her 18-inch guns gleamed under the morning sun, a fleeting image of power before the coming storm. Yamato's formation pressed southward through the East China Sea on 7 April 1945, unaware of the tightening noose. On 6 April, United States submarines, Threadfin and Hackleback, patrolling near Bungo Strait, detected the Japanese flotilla as it cleared Kyushu's coastal waters. By dawn, carrier search aircraft maintained continuous contact, relaying coordinates to Vice Admiral Marc Mitscher's command. Yamato's speed, steady at 22 knots, offered no escape from these eyes in the sky. The number that matters is 300 miles the carriers reach, ensuring strikes without surface contact. Submarine reports precise and continuous fed the United States Navy's tactical picture pinpointing Yamato's course along Kyushu's edge. Japanese lookouts, scanning from Yamato's bridge, spotted distant Specs patrol planes circling beyond anti-aircraft range. The flotilla's radio silence meant to conceal intent proved futile against relentless surveillance. The constraint was fuel. Yamato carried only enough oil for a one-way run, limiting evasive maneuvers. Each destroyer, burning fuel at 22 knots, faced the same restriction, their range tightly constrained. Vice Admiral Seiichi Ito, aboard Yamato, maintained formation discipline with Yahagi and the destroyers screening for submarines and aircraft. The battleship's 150 25mm guns stood ready, their crews drilling for the expected onslaught. United States reconnaissance, however, operated beyond their reach. Search aircraft maintained contact. Carrier scouts, including F-6F Hellcats, flew arcs at 15,000 feet, confirming the flotilla's southward track. By mid-morning, Task Groups 58.1 and 58.3 assembled strike packages. About 386 sorties would be launched in successive, massed strikes. Japanese commanders, aware of their exposure, pressed forward. Captain Kosaku Aruga, on Yamato's bridge, reviewed damage control protocols, anticipating air attacks. The flotilla's course, a straight run toward Okinawa, simplified United States tracking efforts. Submarines maintained intermittent contact and reported by radio. Mitscher's staff aboard the carrier Bunker Hill plotted the Japanese position, coordinating with Task Force 58's air groups. The carriers, steaming at 25 knots, positioned themselves to launch from optimal range. F-6, F Hellcats, F-4U Corsairs, SB-2C Helldivers, and TBM Avengers prepared for takeoff, their ordnance 500-pound bombs and Mark 13 torpedoes tailored to penetrate Yamato's armor. Japanese radio operators monitoring silence detected no immediate threat, but the distant hum of aircraft engines loomed. The constraint was visibility. Yamato's massive silhouette, 862 feet, betrayed her to spotters. As the morning progressed, United States surveillance tightened. Patrol aircraft maintained continuous contact, their reports updating every 30 minutes. Japanese destroyers screening in a loose diamond around Yamato and Yahagi scanned for periscopes but found none. The flotilla's anti-submarine measures, limited by fuel and speed, offered little protection against aerial detection. Mitscher's carriers, operating in 2 task groups, finalized strike plans by late morning. The first massed strike launched shortly after midday as part of about 386 total sorties. Japanese lookouts cursed the distant radar tracks, their scopes lighting up with approaching formations. The number that matters is 22 knots, Yamato's speed too slow to outrun the coming storm. By midday, the East China Sea's calm surface belied the gathering aerial armada as Yamato steamed toward her fate 200 miles from Okinawa's transport area. Yamato steamed southward, her position betrayed by United States surveillance as the East China Sea sparkled under noon sunlight on 7 April 1945. At 12:34 local time, her 9 18-inch guns fired Sanshikidan anti-aircraft shells, bursting at 8,000 feet in a futile attempt to deter the incoming strike. Task Force 58's first wave, a massed strike launching shortly after midday, as part of about 386 total sorties, descended through scattered clouds. F-6F Hellcats and F-4U, Corsairs armed with 50 caliber machine guns, escorted SB-2C Helldivers, and TBM Avengers loaded with 500-pound bombs and Mark 13 torpedoes. By 12:40, dive bombers struck, landing 3 500-pound bombs on Yamato's upper deck, shattering 2 25mm gun mounts and igniting small fires. 2 portside torpedo hits followed at 12:45 each, Mark 13 penetrating below the waterline, forcing a 5-degree list. Captain Kosaku Aruga ordered counter-flooding, flooding starboard compartments to stabilize the ship. Yahagi, screening nearby, took 1 torpedo and 2 bomb hits, slowing to 15 knots as fires spread across her deck. Destroyers Isakaze and Hamakaze, absorbed early strikes with 1,000-pound bombs, detonating near their engine rooms, crippling propulsion. United States pilots trained for anti-ship strikes flew coordinated patterns diving through anti-aircraft fire at 500 feet. Yamato's 150 25mm guns fired, but the sheer volume of attackers overwhelmed them. Japanese gunners stationed in open mounts faced strafing runs from Hellcats, their 50-caliber rounds tearing through exposed crews. The constraint was ammunition. Yamato's anti-aircraft guns worked continuously under intense pressure. Vice Admiral Seiichi Ito, on Yamato's bridge, monitored damage reports as the ship maintained 20 knots, her 18-inch turrets useless against aerial foes. United States strike leaders communicating via radio-adjusted tactics mid-attack. SB-2C Helldivers targeted Yamato's anti-aircraft batteries to suppress fire, while TBM Avengers skimmed waves at 100 feet, aiming torpedoes at her port side to maximize flooding. The battleship's armor, about 16 inches thick at the belt, resisted early bomb hits, but torpedoes struck vulnerable lower hull sections. Japanese damage control teams racing through smoke-filled passages sealed bulkheads, but water ingress outpaced pumps. Destroyers Yukikaze and Fuyutsuki laid smoke screens their turbines, straining at 30 knots to obscure Yamato. The number that matters is 5 degrees of list, signaling Yamato's early vulnerability. Japanese lookouts reported continuous waves, their radar screens cluttered with approaching aircraft at 10,000 feet. The attack's intensity shocked Japanese crews. Yahagi's 6-inch guns, designed for surface combat, offered little defense against low-flying torpedo planes. Isokaze, struck by 2 bombs listed heavily, was crippled and later scuttled by escorts. United States pilots exploiting gaps in anti-aircraft fire pressed closer, their torpedoes set to run at 20 feet depth to defeat Yamato's torpedo bulges. The battleship's counterflooding sealed compartments and cost additional lives, their sacrifice buying time but not salvation. Japanese gunners cursed the relentless formations, their radar tracking aircraft at 15 miles. By 1300 hours, the first wave withdrew, leaving Yamato smoking but operational, her speed reduced to 18 knots as damage mounted. The East China Sea, once calm, churned with oil slicks and debris, as Task Force 58 prepared its second wave 200 miles from Okinawa's transport area. Yamato's deck burned and tilted as the first wave's damage took hold on 7 April 1945, 200 miles north of Okinawa. By 1300 hours, Captain Kosaku Aruga, on the battleship's bridge, received urgent reports, a 10-degree portside list from 2 torpedo hits and 3 bomb strikes. Damage control teams navigating smoke-filled corridors pumped water from flooded compartments, but the ingress outpaced their efforts. Counter-flooding orders flooded starboard boiler rooms, sealed compartments, and cost additional lives. Vice Admiral Seiichi Ito, overseeing the Surface Special Attack Unit, maintained formation discipline, urging destroyers to tighten their smoke screens. Yahagi, crippled by 1 torpedo and 2 bombs, limped at 12 knots, her crew battling fires amid strafing runs. Japanese gunners manning numerous 25mm mounts fired continuously under heavy attack. United States aviators orbiting at 5,000 feet executed precise tactics. Strike leaders communicating by radio directed TBM Avengers to focus torpedoes on Yamato's port side, aiming at 20 feet depth to breach her torpedo bulges. SB-2C Helldivers synchronized high-angle dives, dropping 1,000-pound bombs to silence anti-aircraft batteries, timing attacks to overwhelm defenses. Pilots faced 25mm fire at 500 feet, their F-6F Hellcats strafing to suppress gunners. The constraint was coordination. United States squadrons maintained formation at 10,000 feet to avoid collisions. Japanese officers monitoring radar cursed the relentless radar tracks their screens, showing aircraft circling at 15 miles. The number that matters is 20 feet of torpedo depth piercing Yamato's hull. Destroyers Yukikaze and Hatsushimo, weaving at 30 knots, laid smoke, but wind dispersed it, exposing Yamato's 65,000 tons to clear view. Below Yamato's decks, engineers struggled in sweltering machinery spaces where flooding shorted electrical systems. Boiler output dropped, reducing speed to 18 knots as water reached the lower engine rooms. Aruga ordered emergency repairs, but bulkhead breaches spread unchecked. On Yahagi, Captain Tamechi Hara rallied his crew, sealing compartments as additional torpedo and bomb hits slowed her further. Destroyer Isakaze, burning from 2 bomb hits, was crippled and later scuttled by escorts. United States pilots trained for anti-ship strikes exploited Yamato's slowing speed. Their Mark 13 torpedoes, running true at 400 yards range, Japanese damage control teams equipped with manual pumps fought a losing battle, their efforts hampered by a 15-degree list. The constraint was manpower. Yamato's 3,000 crew dwindled as compartments sealed. The human toll mounted on both sides. Japanese gunners exposed in open mounts fell to, 50 caliber strafing their blood, staining Yamato's deck. United States aviators pressing low-altitude attacks risked anti-aircraft bursts, with some Avengers were lost to anti-aircraft fire. Strike leaders adjusted mid-flight, noting Yamato's smoke trails and sluggish maneuvers. The battleship's 18-inch guns, silent against aircraft, symbolized her obsolescence. Japanese radio operators monitoring faint carrier signals reported a second mast wave forming. The number that matters is 18 knots of speed, signaling Yamato's faltering mobility. On the bridge, Aruga and Ito faced grim reality. Their mission 200 miles from Okinawa teetered on collapse. The East China Sea churned with oil and wreckage as United States carriers prepared another strike, their aircraft climbing to 10,000 feet, ready to exploit Yamato's weakening defenses. Yamato's hull groaned under a 10-degree list as the East China Sea battle intensified on 7 April 1945. By 1320, a second massed strike of carrier aircraft roared in their F-6F Hellcats, F-4U, Corsairs SB-2C Helldivers, and TBM Avengers, targeting the faltering battleship. 3 more portside torpedoes struck Yamato by 1330, flooding machinery spaces and dropping her speed to 10 knots. 2 1,000-pound bombs detonated on her deck, shattering radar arrays and silencing additional 25mm gun mounts. The number that matters is 10 knots of speed, signaling Yamato's collapse. Captain Kosaku Aruga on the bridge ordered emergency steering, but flooded compartments jammed the rudder, forcing a circular course. Vice Admiral Seiichi Ito, monitoring damage reports, saw the mission unraveling 200 miles from Okinawa's transport area. Yahagi, after multiple torpedo and bomb hits, capsized around 1400 hours, her 400 survivors clinging to debris under strafing runs. Destroyer Asashimo, lagging astern, took 3 bomb hits at 1325, sinking with 326 hands. Destroyers Yukikaze and Fuyutsuki, weaving at 25 knots, laid smoke screens, but United States pilots pierced the haze, diving at 2,000 feet. Yamato's anti-aircraft fire, with remaining light mounts still engaging, fired sporadically, their crews decimated by 50 caliber strafing. The constraint was ammunition. Yamato's guns sustained fire under heavy attack. United States strike leaders, orbiting at 5,000 feet, coordinated high-low attacks with TBMs launching Mark 13 torpedoes at 20 feet depth to exploit Yamato's list. SB-2C Helldivers targeted her bridge and turrets, landing 1 bomb near the main battery, igniting fires. Japanese damage control teams wading through knee-deep water, sealed bulkheads, but flooding spread to the engine rooms, shorting generators. Yamato's list reached 15 degrees, her 65,000 tons tilting perilously. Engineers trapped in sweltering compartments maintained boiler pressure until water extinguished fires, halting propulsion. Destroyer Hamikaze, hit by 2 torpedoes, sank at 1335, her 100 survivors adrift. United States pilots, exploiting Yamato's sluggish maneuvers, pressed closer, their torpedoes running at 400 yards range. Japanese lookouts cursed the endless aircraft waves, their radar screens blank from battle damage. By battle's end, the hull had been breached by at least 11 torpedo hits in total, too many to repel the assault. Japanese gunners, bloodied and exhausted, manned their posts, firing until shrapnel felled them. The second wave's precision overwhelmed Yamato's defenses. United States aviators trained for anti-ship strikes synchronized their attacks with Hellcats, strafing at 500 feet to suppress fire. torpedo reload after 30 minutes at sea, constrained United States squadrons, yet fresh reserves from carriers 300 miles away joined the fray. Yamato's 18-inch guns, useless against aircraft, remained silent, their crews reassigned to damage control. On the bridge, Aruga ordered abandoned ship preparations, though Ito urged continued resistance. The battleship's hull, taking cumulative damage well beyond 7 torpedoes, leaked oil creating slicks visible from 10 miles. Destroyers Kasumi and Suzutsuki, damaged by bombs, attempted rescue operations, their decks crowded with wounded. The East China Sea, littered with debris, reflected Yamato's fading strength, her mission to reach Okinawa's transport area now impossible. The number that matters is 15 degrees of list, marking the point of no return as United States aircraft circled for the final blow. Yamato's fate sealed itself in the East China Sea on 7 April 1945, her hull tilting perilously at 20 degrees by 1400 hours. 4 additional portside torpedoes, launched by TBM Avengers at 20 feet depth, struck between 1340 and 1410, overwhelming counter-flooding efforts. Flooded machinery spaces silenced her engines, leaving the battleship dead in the water 200 miles from Okinawa. At about 1423, a catastrophic explosion, likely a magazine detonation, ripped through Yamato's hull, flames erupting from her 18-inch turret barbettes. The ship rolled to port, capsizing within minutes, her 65,000 tons plunging beneath the waves. The number that matters is at least 11 torpedo hits that defeated her armor, with about 6 bomb hits contributing to the damage. Only about 269 to 270 of her 3,000 crew survived, clinging to oil-slicked debris. Japanese lookouts moments before the end cursed the relentless aircraft swarming at 5,000 feet, their radar screens dark from battle damage. Yahagi, after multiple torpedo and bomb hits, capsized around 1400 hours, her 400 survivors, under fire from strafing Hellcats. Destroyer Asashimo lost, with 326 hands, left no trace. Hamikaze sank with about 100 survivors rescued. Isokaze was crippled and later scuttled by escorts. Destroyers, Yukikaze and Fuyutsuki, battered but afloat, attempted rescues, their decks packed with wounded under relentless United States attacks. The constraint was flooding Yamato's pumps failed against at least 11 torpedo breaches. United States pilots circling at 5,000 feet confirmed the battleship's destruction. Vice Admiral Seiichi Ito, likely killed in the explosion, went down with Yamato, as did Captain Kosaku Aruga, who refused to abandon the bridge. The battleship's final moments shattered her myth of invincibility. Her 18-inch guns, silent throughout, symbolized a bygone era of naval warfare. United States strike leaders monitoring from 10,000 feet reported Yamato's capsizing her hull, vanishing in a vortex of smoke and spray. The number that matters is 65,000 tons reduced to wreckage in 2 hours of relentless assault. Kasumi was disabled and scuttled after rescuing survivors, and Suzutsuki, crippled by bombs, limped northward, her crew hauling survivors from the sea. Japanese radio operators aboard surviving ships sent frantic distress calls unanswered amid the din of battle. The East China Sea, once calm, churned with oil debris and bodies, a graveyard for the Imperial Japanese Navy's last surface gamble. United States carriers 300 miles away prepared to redirect their aircraft, their mission accomplished without surface engagement. The scale of the assault underscored aviation's dominance. Task Force 58's, about 386 sorties, launched from carriers like Hornet and Bennington, obliterated the Japanese formation. Yamato's anti-aircraft defenses, steadily reduced under continuous attack, could not stem the tide. Japanese survivors adrift in life rafts faced strafing runs, their numbers dwindling as destroyers struggled to rescue them. The number that matters is about 269 to 270 survivors from Yamato, a fraction of her crew, marking the human cost of her doomed mission. The battleship, designed to dominate surface fleets, succumbed to coordinated air power, her sinking visible from 10 miles as United States pilots turned for home. Operation Tengo, intended to disrupt Okinawa's invasion, collapsed in spectacular failure, leaving the Japanese Navy broken and the United States unchallenged in the Pacific. Yamato's sinking on 7 April 1945 in the East China Sea marked the Imperial Japanese Navy's final surface defeat. Of her 3,000 crew, only about 269 to 270 survived, rescued by battered destroyers Yukikaze and Fuyutsuki amid strafing runs. Yahagi sunk at around 1400 hours, lost 400 men with survivors pulled from oil-slicked waters under fire. Destroyer Asashimo obliterated with 326 hands left no trace. Hamikaze and Isokaze, sunk by torpedoes and bombs, had survivors rescued in limited numbers. Total Japanese casualties ranged from 3,700 to 4,000, a devastating blow to a navy already crippled. United States losses were minimal: 10 aircraft and 12 aviators across about 386 sorties. Task Force 58, operating 300 miles away, never faced surface threats its carriers, Hornet, Bennington, and others, proving air power's supremacy. The number that matters is about 386 sorties flown to annihilate the Japanese formation. The failure of Operation Tengo had no impact on the Okinawa campaign, with United States forces securing the island by June 1945. Yamato's 65,000 tons, once a symbol of Japanese naval, might lay shattered 200 miles from the target. Her 18-inch guns, designed for fleet battles, never fired a shot in anger against ships, underscoring battleship's obsolescence. Vice Admiral Seiichi Ito and Captain Kosaku Aruga, lost with Yamato, epitomized the mission's futility, their orders driven by desperation rather than strategy. Surviving destroyers limping back to Japan carried tales of relentless United States aircraft, their Mark 13 torpedoes, and 1,000-pound bombs overwhelming even the mightiest warship. The constraint was doctrine. Japan's reliance on surface power ignored aviation's dominance in 1945. United States pilots returning to carriers at 15,000 feet reported Yamato's capsizing her explosion visible 10 miles away. Task Force 58, under Vice Admiral Marc Mitscher, redirected its aircraft to other targets, the Japanese threat neutralized without a single surface engagement. The number that matters is 12. United States aviators lost a fraction compared to Japan's thousands. Japanese admirals who once boasted Yamato's unsinkability faced reality no ship could withstand, about 386 coordinated sorties. The battleship's armor, about 16 inches at the belt, succumbed to at least 11 torpedo hits, and about 6 bombs, her counter-flooding overwhelmed by precise port-side attacks. Survivors adrift in the East China Sea recounted the chaos, smoke flames, and the roar of aircraft at 500 feet. The sinking reshaped naval warfare's future. Yamato's destruction, 200 miles from Okinawa, confirmed carriers as the Pacific's decisive weapon. The Imperial Japanese Navy, reduced to scattered destroyers and submarines, never mounted another major surface action. United States Fifth Fleet under Admiral Raymond Spruance continued its advance unchallenged by Japan's surface fleet. The number that matters is 65,000 tons. Yamato's displacement, a monument to a bygone era, now a wreck beneath the waves. Japanese naval strategy tethered to battleship supremacy collapsed against Task Force 58's air power. The East China Sea, littered with debris, bore witness to a turning point. Aviation ruled, and Yamato's myth of invincibility lay broken her mission, a futile gesture in a war Japan could no longer win.